So if you have an inferiority complex, you may decide to attempt to make up for it and to be superior in some way. However, that superiority turns into becomes a complex. It is the inferiority complex, and we really do not escape the trap of the terms of what's happening to us. So you can see how insidious emotional wounds can be. Look at abandonment. You will develop a fear that you will be abandoned in the future, so you may become overly possessive, or you may withdraw to avoid that from occurring. But you see how that also is functioning in terms of the fear. How? We have to now respond to the presence of our emotional wounds from outside their terms. That provides for a restructuring of the schema. That means the mental image of the problem. So mindfulness meditation actually does function outside the terms of your emotional wound, and we place our attention on, well, I wouldn't say on ourselves, but certainly on our experience, and we slow down the ruminations that are occurring throughout the day for us. In other words, we're constantly in our imaginations, very often repeating the stories that are in our mind, stories very often of disappointment, and trying to avoid the disappointment but operating in terms of them. So mindfulness meditation or Zazen, Vipassana meditation, and other types of meditation in which we focus on a single object, we're not talking to ourselves, provides an opportunity for a new exposure and for the changing, for the evolving, for the transformation of our images. And now, you know, the question becomes, how do we place our attention? Where do we place our attention to allow this process to occur? And you know, Rupert Spira speaks so beautifully about where our attention needs to go that I'm going to discuss his perspective to some extent, as far as I have my own grasp of it. What he suggests is that our awareness, the subjective part of our experience, awareness, the subjective part, yes, you know, there's a subjective and objective perceiver, and the object, the perception, which constitutes our experience. He suggests that the subjective aspect, that subjective perspective, is just that. It is not, cannot be objectified. It has no time, space, measure, beginnings and endings. Think about that for a moment. Our own I, the I am, what I am, the awareness, whether I'm aware of my mind, obviously the mind is an object, something else is aware of it. That awareness is empty of any objective property. It is not personal. And we have to now chew that over also. Why? Because we think of ourselves, generally, folks, we think of ourselves as the mind and as the body, even though we actually can perceive the mind and the body. So obviously something is looking at the mind and looking at the body. As we monitor our thoughts, for example, we realize we are not our thoughts. So something is observing that. What that is may better be understood as not personal, that it may be something that arises from the greater system of which all of us are. We are fully aware at this point, even science today is well aware that everything is interdependent. We do not exist in a vacuum. We are actually part of everything, and everything is functioning as a single event, actually. So to suggest that that consciousness is collective is rather reasonable. Our awareness is a collective phenomena. Even there, again, I'm discussing an object, a phenomena, so I'm objectifying it and obviously missing the point. The subjective cannot be understood in any objective fashion. Now, Rupert Spira discusses what it's like. What is that consciousness like? And he uses some wonderful metaphors. And one of them is the mirror. When you bring up a mirror, you can see that it can reflect just about anything that you can see. Infinite diversity can be reflected in that mirror. Infinite quantity can be reflected in that mirror. Yet it's one single little mirror. And when you think of your consciousness, it functions quite the same way. The mirror is one thing, it's unchanging, yet it can accommodate infinite diversity. So too is our consciousness is a single thing that may well be understood as something that it's unchanging. As the observation, in other words, the world, the objects change. However, the perceiving factor is unchanging. Unchanging under all conditions, whether you are awake, asleep, or in deep sleep. Now, the question is, in meditation, where do we place our awareness? Now, if you're a meditator, you will have gone through several phases, counting on what level, how much practice you've done. But there are times when you get very spacey and your focus, you're centered, you lose focus, and there's a kind of a blurry sense. Sometimes you have a little dissociated type of experience, and then moments later you have a great deal of clarity. So there's movement in your awareness when we meditate, even though we are stilling the mind. We are remaining, we're suspending judgments to some extent when we meditate. That's our interest. That's what